My name is Attila Domos. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I used to be lead singer, songwriter for a rock band in Pittsburgh called Big Bad Wolf back in the late 80s and early 90s. We signed a recording contract, and later that night, probably about 5 hours later, I had a falling accident that left me paralyzed from the waist down. I wanted to be an athlete. That was my thing. I wanted to be a soccer player growing up. I loved sports. I just loved to challenge myself physically, and that never changed. So my friend Ian, he said, well, you know, maybe you should try hand cycling. I'm like, what's that? Think of the things you never thought you would want to do and go try it. Because you're never going to know what it is you're good at in life. I would have never guessed ever in my life, I would have never, ever thought that I would ever own a world record. Okay, so I was lead singer, late 80s, early 90s. I was lead singer and songwriter for a local band called Big Bad Wolf. My younger brother was the new drummer in the band. He just graduated high school that year. So he took over for the old drummer, and a couple months later is when we ended up with the recording contract.
And then, man, it was crazy. I remember the night, you know, when it just everything all just happened at one time, you know. I was working as a nighttime janitor at a movie theater, and I had to go in after practice, and the other janitor called off, so I was stuck by myself doing the whole theater. And my brother and a friend of mine came in to help.
You know, we cleaned it up in a hurry. I mean, it was like 10, 15 minutes. We had the theaters clean. He just had to dust mop the front hallway. And while he was doing that, the kid who was with us found a ladder behind the first screen. So naturally, being a curious guy that I am, we're like, let's go see what's up there. And nothing, just like broken bulbs and stuff. I was hoping to find like cool posters from the 50s, you know. And it wasn't anything like that. So coming down, there was this dim little light bulb up there and a rope that was hanging on the ladder. So I was the first one to come down. I took literally like 3 steps down, and the rope snapped, and down I went. And next thing I know, I'm surrounded by all kinds of people and just asking me questions and telling me to move my feet. And, you know, I had no idea what was going on.
And we had signed the contract that night. You know, at rehearsal, we're having a good time. We're like, all right, it's legit. We doing it. We're doing it. We sign it. We go in and clean up the theater. Not 3 hours later, he breaks, breaks his back. Naturally, the record company split after that.
It was one of them yin and yang kind of nights. A little bit of good, a little bit of bad. It's like the first week is very rough on you. So I had my poor woe me moment, I cried, when they come in and tell you you're never going to walk again, you're not going to have kids, it's kind of like, whoa, okay, what the hell happened?
Going from somebody who was one of the most athletic people around in this entire Pittsburgh that I can think of, and just being always so motivated to not being able to walk all of a sudden, that was shattering to him and to me. I'm sure he had many moments, in the rehab and whatever, when he broke down and cried and whatnot. I had my moments too, because he was my fucking inspiration growing up. It fucking hurt me when he broke his back. But
my preferred choice of transportation up and down these steps. Unfortunately, you can't rely on it all the time. Yeah, there it is. This is my dungeon, I call it. This is where I do all the hard work, the sweat, the grinding and lifting. I had a background in powerlifting that I got into shortly after my accident. About a year after, I just started lifting weights, and I had friends who did powerlifting, so I said, you know what, I'll go down and get into some of the meets. And I actually won states in, I think it was 96 or 97, I can't remember now. I was interested in push rim, which is the long chair where you see the guys like lean forward and pushing. A long arms helps because you can keep your hands on a tire longer. So I'm not built for that. So my friend Ian, he was really good at it. He was a Paralympian. He said, well, maybe you should try hand cycling. He wrote a letter of recommendation for me to get a hand cycle through the, through? The Challenge Athletes Foundation. And they got me my first hand cycle. And man, I took it to it like fish to water. I mean, it was, the thing and I were just one. Hey, is it the three-legged cat? No, I don't think so. Hello.
Hello.
All right, we're gonna go up top of the street, then I'll count like 10. Just go ahead down.
Okay.
And catch me another nice low angle coming by.
Okay.
Okay. What's up, kitty? So Danny Chu is a world-class bicyclist from Pittsburgh. He actually comes from a family of cyclists. His brother and sister, his brothers and sister were also cyclists, and they started the Dirty Dozen, which is, I'd recommend for anybody. It's 13 of Pittsburgh's toughest hills. If you're a cyclist, whether you're a hand cyclist or a bicyclist or, any kind of cyclist, come to Pittsburgh and do it. It is the most challenging thing, one of the most challenging things you're ever going to do. So Danny told me about this 24-hour thing that he did, in Wisconsin or wherever. And I was like, you know what? I think I could do a 24-hour ride. He's like, yeah? I said, yeah, I think I could. He's like, well, if you think you can, then you need to be able to ride 80 miles, then 90 miles, and then 100 miles 3 days in a row. So I said, all right, I did. So I rode 80 miles. 90 miles. By day 3, I was exhausted. I got up and just my eyeballs hurt. So, but I did 110. I was like, just a bit, there you go, Danny. So, and he showed up at the track on the 3rd day to make sure that I did it, Danny would give me other tests to do, and he would say, okay, you got to be able to do 150 miles. You got to do 100 miles in like 5 or under 6 hours or whatever. So I did that, whatever he was telling me to do, I did that and, over and beyond. So I decided to go for the world record. Everybody, I mean, I think even Danny doubted me. I mean, everybody, they were looking at me. They're like, "You're 48, dude." I mean, it's one thing to, be able to hit 30 miles an hour or go fast, this and that. It's another thing to do a 24-hour ride. And I'm like, man, I'm telling you, endurance is my thing. I can last forever and ever. We did it on August 20th and 21st down there. And Danny happened to be out of town that weekend. He had a family meeting, I think, up in New York somewhere. And It turned into the most brutal 24 hours of my life.
He went from noon till noon. Yeah, that was an absolute grueling event. Grueling. I I I can't tell you how many times throughout the night I said he's insane. He's absolutely insane.
All right, 10.
All right, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're off. All right.
As I was breaking the world record, people were calling. We had people tuning in because we streamed on Facebook, for 10, 15 minutes at a time. We had people watching from Israel, Germany, Australia, Brazil, Hungary, Romania, all over the world. People were tuning in to watch this thing.
Everyone thinks I'm really great at filming you.
8 miles ahead of record pace.
8. He was 7 last time.
And I remember Danny telling me that he said the night is going to last forever. And my response to him was like, I love the night, dude. I'm up all night. He knows I'm a night owl, So I'm like, that'll be my favorite time. Well, by the time we got to 5:30 in the morning, I wanted to kill somebody. I needed daylight so bad.
Oh, Christ. Oh.
Health? I'm.
Hey, try one of these.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Hey, you want any cookies?
No, I can't eat anything, man.
We had something like 200 and something glow sticks just trying to light up the track because there were no lights on this track.
311.2. 5.2 miles ahead.
How many world records were broken in Pittsburgh, whether officially or unofficially. And we couldn't get anybody from the local media to come out. Not a single person came out, other than Andrew.
The next morning when he was finishing up for his last hour or so, I showed up at the track, really not knowing what to expect because I couldn't contact him. Of course, he was going around the track nonstop, so I didn't know if he had to stop or he was delayed in some way. But when I got to the track, lo and behold, there he was, just going and going, and it was amazing to see him even after 23 hours, basically, at that point. He hadn't stopped.
Yeah!
Yay, Attila!
Hey!
12 o'clock!
And man, when that 24 hours was up, I can't even tell you how good it felt. And I just pulled in, I was laying there, and I couldn't move. People were like, all right, you did it. I'm like, yay.
Because he really ate nothing. He ate like maybe 2 cookies throughout the whole thing, and it was just protein shakes and the Zilla energy drinks and all this, and I felt so bad for him. And my son is in the back seat while we're taking him to the hospital, and it's funny because I look back in the rearview mirror and my son's just like.
I was going to go in the hospital anyway to get some saline, for recovery. But I must have looked really bad because, normally you go to the ER and you give them your name and you fill out the paperwork, you go in the bag, they take your blood pressure. I gave them my name and they were already putting me on a gurney and took me straight in the back. I would have quit. If it wasn't for my crew, I would have quit probably about 18 hours into it. It hurt that bad. But they wouldn't let me quit. And all the supporters, everybody who was chiming in on Facebook and telling me to keep going. I mean, I can't even tell you how much that meant to me, But Danny was the biggest reason that I did do it because he was the one who prepared me. I got up to ride one Sunday. It was 2 weeks after after I broke the record. So I went out, did my normal, whatever, 60 miles or whatever I did that day. I don't remember. But then I came home and there was a message from Chris, one of the cycling guys, and it just said, hey, cycling community, our friend Danny needs our help. And then there was a link to a fundraising site, and it was written by Danny's nephew. So what happened is he and his friend Cassie went out for a ride. He blacked out and he crossed the street, went into a ditch, flipped his bike, and because he was blacked out, he couldn't catch himself, so he ended up breaking his neck. and he was paralyzed from about the nipples down. And I was just like, are you kidding me? This can't be real. I mean, if I went to see a movie about a world-class cyclist who trains a guy in a wheelchair, a paraplegic, to break a world record, and then 2 weeks later he breaks his neck and becomes a quad, I wouldn't believe that movie. I'd be like, you're trying to tug at my heart. It's, come on, a Hallmark movie of the month, you know? So it was just so insane. But there was a big outpouring. Danny and his family are very popular bicyclists, you know? So there was a huge outpouring of support for Danny and everything. But I happened to come across Wendy Bell's page, and she literally did a story on Danny that day.
Somebody, a neighbor of mine who rode with Danny, reached out to me and said, you know, there's this great cycling icon in town who's a huge fan of yours, and he just broke his back.
I just said, hey, look, I'm friends with Danny. He mentored me for a world record that I just broke. If you're interested in the story, get back with me. If not, fine. I was really sick and tired of nobody getting back to me, you know. And Wendy was the only one to respond.
Attila messaged me on my Facebook page and said, hey, you know, thank you so much for following my friend. This is who I am and this is what I did. Are you interested? And I was like, what?
She kind of took on Danny's and my story, made it like kind of her crusade. She's done more to get Danny's and my story out to the world than the rest of the media in Pittsburgh, excluding Andrew and Reed combined. I don't know, I still can't believe that he's paralyzed. Everything changed. Before, he was my mentor, and now I'm sort of mentoring him. He's known as the Million Mile Man, by the way. He's already ridden, I think, around 800,000 miles. Now his goal is to finish out the other 200,000 miles in a hand cycle.
It was Danny, the creator of the Dirty Dozen here in Pittsburgh, who inspired Attila to try to break the 24-hour hand cycling world record, which he did this summer in August. And now our mission is to get Attila to do it for the Guinness Book, because the Guinness Book wasn't here and they're not recognizing that he broke it. Now, you are going to get into Attila's bike and he's going to become the student now. You were the inspirer,
That's
you were
right.
the inspiration, and now
Teacher becomes student.
teacher becomes a student. Are you guys ready, Attila? Are you ready to try to tell him how to get into this?
People think that it's an easy thing because you're laying back in it. And I've even had one guy saying, boy, that's a lazy way to bicycle. But it is the most difficult thing you're ever going to do. It is brutal.
When you hand cycle, I mean, it's all using your arms. And you would think that gliding along the ground is easy, but in reality, it's not.
I can't imagine doing anything for 24 hours, let alone using my arms and going 800 times around a track, braking for what, 5 minutes, 10 minutes at a time?
In 2017, I'm going to go out to California and officially break the current world record.